to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak. Mr. Johnny, how are you?
Mr. Johnny, I'm doing fine. Mr. Zach, how are you?
Was that an awkward way to introduce you? Should we do that again?
It was funny.
It just kind of rolled off the tongue.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm used to, like, growing up. I was always hearing like Johnny Appleseed and Johnny Bravo and things like that. So Mr. Johnny is not.
We're going with Mr. Johnny. Kind of sounds like a Stephen King horror villain.
It does, doesn't it?
If you're out after midnight walking down the street, Mr. Johnny will get you.
My God. Yeah,
okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to start this podcast by just giving you a horrible, terrifying reputation.
My nickname.
Yeah, let's just pretend that didn't happen. And Johnny, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Zach. How are you?
I'm good. After last week's absolute monster of a podcast, 2 reviews, breaking news of award stuff, top 5 list. You know, that was a big one. I'm excited to sort of tone it down to a more simple, traditional podcast this week.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of a breezier episode. I mean, and the good thing is we still have, a good amount of exciting things to kind of discuss and dive into. But
right. So let the people know, what are those exciting things?
So of course, on the news front, we have the first footage of a couple big, high profile movies that are coming up on the awards kind of season slate that's been extended because of the pandemic. Malcolm and Marie from Netflix, of course, with Zendaya and John David Washington, and then Cherry with the Tom Holland buzz is crazy as usual.
Holland Hive is hype.
Hive.
Anybody I know who tweeted something about that movie, good or bad, if they put the words Tom Holland in there, it got like 125 likes and like 50 retweets. It's just they're buzzing for it. So that's we'll use the right hashtags for this podcast to get it to really pop off.
Right. Well, it's interesting because both of those people, we'll get more into this when we actually break into the news, but they're both kind of been associated with, more accessible, more like family friendly, properties. I mean, I know Zendaya's had Euphoria, of course, which has been a huge success, and she has won the Emmy for that, but she's big in Spider-Man. She started at Disney. Tom Holland is Spider-Man, of course. But, he was in The Devil All the Time recently, and now he's getting into Cherry, which is a lot darker and has, it's about drugs and sex and robbing banks and stuff. So not your friendly neighborhood superhero by any means, but we have that on the news front. And as award season still marches on, Pieces of a Woman, which is just finally hit Netflix for everyone to check out for themselves. We are going to review that after seeing it a couple months ago now, I believe, both of us.
Mine was just this past about a week.
You recently caught up with it. That's right.
Yeah, mine's a little fresher than yours. I know you've been
riding
the anticipation wave for a while.
Yeah, I did rewatch it. I think maybe even before you watched it for the first time. But I
was busy. Okay.
I watched it and I, was able to kind of
evaluate
I was able to reestablish and reestablish. Yeah.
Affirm.
Reaffirm. And then of course, as the year is now kicking off, like for realsies, we're getting into like the second week of the year. We can talk about some of our most anticipated films of 2021, because 2020 was a bit of a wash, even though we did get some great films in there as well. If everything goes according to plan, fingers crossed, I think this will be a banner year in a lot of ways for cinema. So I'm excited. There's a lot to discuss here.
Yeah, well, that's there. Like you said, there's a ton. Even though this is a more normal episode, not as jam-packed, we'll still have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about. But as always, before we get into it, what's been going on in the world of Johnny? I know I've finally finished up some TV that I finally finished watching Succession season 2. So I'm caught up about a year late, but I'm ready. It was so good. If you haven't watched it somehow, like me, go watch it. Johnny, I know you haven't watched it, but you should definitely. I know as much as you like,
actually.
Okay. Well, as much as you like the HBO world and just like what they put out, I feel like this is one of the best.
I'm very high on what I saw so far, so it's just a matter of timing. I'm definitely going to get these.
That's what it was for me all the time. So to finally sit down and do it.
Absolutely.
And I think now, as I'm still continuing to play catch up, after begging from Rebecca, I'm going to start Schitt's Creek, which I'm very excited. I don't know, have you watched this?
I have had my girlfriend as well. She's put me onto it just a little bit. I catch episodes here and there, but
you're not a full-time binger.
No, it's very funny from what I've seen. So I hope to as well kind of breeze through that. I'm not sure how many seasons it is, but I do know that
it's six or 7, and they're all on Netflix. So it's nice, especially after Succession, which is just 2 seasons, but it's like the 10-episode hour-long drama. I'm excited to get into like the lighter, like 30-minute episodes here and there.
Absolutely.
But I'm excited about. I know it's always been this big, not argument, but like I had like 4 shows I was watching, and I was like, okay, I promise I'm not going to add another one to it, but I promise once I finish Succession, I'll start watching Schitt's Creek. And she's like, why do you hate it? Why don't you want to watch it? And I'm like, trust me, I want to watch it, and I will. I'm excited about it. Just give me a minute. So now I have to finally follow up on my promise, hold up my end of the bargain.
That's good.
Anything that you've been watching lately? TV, movies, anything going on?
TV.
Shout out.
Not so much. I have been knocking out some movies that I did promise other people that I was going to watch, including the one you gifted me for my birthday in November. I finally got up to it. I watched Pop Star, which I thought was hilarious. And the songs absolutely slap. I have listened to the soundtrack since I watched the movie. So definitely recommend checking that out if you never did get a chance to see it. It came out in 2016. Also finally crossed off Howl's Moving Castle, Hayao Miyazaki film. And his birthday was, I think, like the day after I watched it. So it was kind of the timing was funny on that, which I thought, again, was spectacular. Revisited Avengers Endgame, which I loved just as much as I did a couple of years ago when it came out, because I actually hadn't seen it since theaters in its entirety.
Really? Well, how many times in theaters?
Like 3.
Just once? Or 3? Okay.
3
Yeah,
opening.
I was with you. I did 3 as well, but I didn't fully rewatch it, but it was on like, I don't know, maybe like Saturday it was like maybe Tuesday night of this past week. Like, I didn't even know there was like a TNT East and a TNT West, but it was like one of them had Endgame on and the other had Infinity War on. Yeah. And they were like, so it was like, I watched like the last 30 minutes of Infinity War and then flipped it over and watched the last 30 minutes of Endgame. And it was kind of like, it kind of still flowed together, even though it was just like those little ending bits.
That's funny you mentioned that, because I caught like the last 30 minutes or 40 minutes of Infinity War on, I think it was TNT on TV. While I was just doing some work on my laptop. And then one of my good friends, Gabe, for my birthday, got me Endgame on 4K. So after Infinity War ended, I threw in the 4K, and then I just cleared it out that night. And it's still so damn.
That's a very spontaneous. That's a big commitment to be so spontaneous with casually throwing in a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, well, the benefits of being unemployed, Zach.
Sleep in the next day, don't have to worry about staying up late.
Yeah, so I really did key in on it though, and I was I was happy that it held up as well as it did. I was still very impressed, and all the emotional stuff still hits for me. And after that, I finally crossed out Jake's recommendation, The Last Black Man in San Francisco from 2019 as well, which is fantastic. I loved it. Super overlooked. I feel like it should have gotten some Academy Awards recognition at the very least. A24, I think, let that movie down a little bit. But I highly recommend checking that out. If you're in the US, at least, I know it's on Prime Video. You can watch if you have an account there. And then just today, before I got on, I revisited for the first time Apocalypse Now, which I only saw once. I saw it like 2 or 3 years ago now. Before I like really got more into film, like studying film. So it was a new experience for sure. And I also got to watch it in 4K because I got that for Christmas. So I was really excited. And damn, if you haven't seen it, man, you gotta check it out at some point because
I know it's going to shock you, but I have not seen that.
It's something else, man. It's very, I mean, it's beating a dead horse because it's very widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made. But I wasn't like floored by it the first time I watched it. I don't know if it was because I was watching it kind of like late at night, or I wasn't, again, as in tune with a lot of film things like I am now. But I definitely appreciate it more, and the 4K was just stunning, and it's a one of a kind type of film, I think. So if you haven't seen it, I know it's kind of, the 4K has been upgraded and the Blu-ray and everything, so I would certainly recommend checking it out if you have never gotten around to watching it or haven't seen it in a long time, because it still holds up over 40 years later.
Well, I will just add that to the list. I know I've obviously heard of it, so it's not like it's like you're introducing me to some brand new thing.
Crazy, but unheard of movie. The Godfather.
What is that?
Same director, if you didn't know, actually.
Well,
Francis Ford
since
Coppola.
The Godfather is also on my list.
Yeah.
Before we get into the news, I was gonna use it as the perfect segue, but then we got off. But back to the MCU. I guess this is gonna be like somewhat of a new segment, maybe, as we start each episode. Hopefully. Yeah. But we're 1 week out, under 1 week at this point, from WandaVision, the first of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, dropping 2 episodes on this coming Friday. And unlike The Mandalorian, Johnny says he's going to watch this live in real time versus waiting to the end of season binge. So hopefully that means that we can have some weekly WandaVision discussions, because I know we're both very excited to see, just sort of, first of all, to get back in the MCU, but to see like this weirdness that's about to go down. That's the best way to describe it, I think.
Hell yeah, man. I have been looking forward to this for a while, really ever since they announced it and kind of let people in on what the concept was. I think it's had a lot of potential, and it sounds like it's going to deliver on that. And from, a lot of the footage and stuff they've released, it seems like it is. I think the marketing campaign's been fantastic. So yeah, I'm excited to every week. I haven't done this with, I think the last time I did something like a week to week thing where I was consistently coming in and watching it and everything was Game of Thrones, probably. So
I just don't get how you can. I don't get it. Like especially with the Mando and you being like,
well, Mando. That's the thing though, because there's not many shows that do that. Streaming shows.
Right. Still, but like
HBO,
I feel like with you being such an online, it's not like you're some hermit that doesn't go on social media or anything. Like, yeah, I can't imagine like either spoiler wise or just like I'm one of those people who's like I have to be part of the discussion. Like I want to be able to like know what people are talking about and be part of the conversation. Well, so like I can't imagine not like doing it if it's something big that I'm into. I can't imagine not doing it in real time.
Yeah, I mean it was tough. Again, I haven't been the biggest Star Wars fan ever at any time in my life. So last year, I think when Mando season 1 was dropping and the Rise of Skywalker came out, and Rise of Skywalker was just so bad. I didn't really care about Mandalorian. I was just like, I really am not interested in anything Star Wars right now. And then I finally got around to watching it a few months ago now. And I loved it. I mean, I was really excited for season 2, but I also knew, maybe if I didn't have a girlfriend who hadn't seen the first season yet, I would have just knocked it out every single week. But I waited for her.
Made that. I respect the commitment.
I made the sacrifice on that end, but it was worth it because it was fun to binge it and see kind of her reaction as well. But it was a little bit of a bummer because a lot of stuff did get spoiled. Like I saw Boba Fett like come back and be, kicking ass. I saw that Luke,
Right.
Was reappearing and all that. So, but I stayed away as much as I could. I did mute some things here and there, but it was fine. Again, if it was another property that I had more like stake in, perhaps I wouldn't have been able to resist. But now that the MCU is kicking off their slate of shows, I think I should be able to knock them out. And I'm trying to get my girlfriend, who has not seen really many MCU movies at all, maybe just a handful here and there. I'm going to try
do the 23 movie binge.
Yeah, we started Iron Man last night, and she loved it, but we ended up, she went to sleep. So we're going to finish it today, I think, after this, and then maybe do one or two other movies and then just kind of keep it steady from there. So maybe by the time, Winter Soldier and the Falcon comes out, we can start together, maybe
right.
those like weekly. But I'm really excited for WandaVision. So
yeah, I don't know if you have any insight on this or any opinion on what might happen. But one WandaVision question before we move on. I know we have heard that it's going to be, an I Love Lucy theme, a Bewitched theme, one that's like the Office mockumentary style. Like, do you think, or do we know, like, is this going to be episode 1 is like the earliest time period and episode 9 is the most recent? Like, do you think it's going to go in like a sequential kind of like chronological order, or is it going to be like
decades?
Yeah, is it going to be like, okay, episode 1 is I Love Lucy, episode 2 is The Office, and then episode 3 is back to Bewitched? Like, do you think they're going to mix it up or try and keep it sort of in line?
I think it's going to be, and again, like you said, I don't really have like too much insight on this, but I do think it's going to be an amalgamation. I think depending on, I'll be curious to see how they balance the tones and everything. But I do think they're kind of going to be free flowing from one style.
I also feel like there's going to be some sort of like point, like a breaking point where it's like, okay, we've done I Love Lucy, we've done Bewitched, we've done this for so long, and then like as it kind of gets towards the end, and it's like, okay, Wanda's vision or whatever, Wanda's alternate reality is coming, like it's shattering, that it's going to kind of break into a just like normal, not themed, but like an MCU kind of.
Super tough to say. Like, that's the thing though. I think that's part of why I'm so excited, is because it's, it's
I'm so unknown and out there.
Yeah. Which I've kind of avoided watching everything they've released just because I want to go in somewhat blind, but I do have certain expectations, of course. But I think it'll be fun, especially for us to just kind of check in on it every week with everyone else who's listening.
For sure. Well, shall we get into some news for this week?
Absolutely.
Well, I think at least the biggest thing for me that I was very into was the somewhat surprise. Remy's in the background. He's very excited about this as well. That's the release of the Malcolm and Marie trailer, and the fact that we got the release of the trailer and the posters, and then the embargo broke the same day. Yeah,
very unusual, for sure. I guess that's just the nature of the game now, with streaming releases and just things getting shifted around. And I think this movie in particular, they have Zendaya, they have John David, who's, kind of a rising star right now, and Sam Levinson, who's been pretty much gold for, over at HBO with Euphoria. I feel like they and Netflix in general, I'm not going to go on a rant about this, but their marketing is awful, especially for their films.
Pieces of a Woman.
But just their films in general, I think, unless they consider it like to be a marquee, like, something like, I'm not
franchise
even sure.
Potential.
Yeah,
I would say like The Old Guard was better than Pieces of a Woman.
For sure, no question.
The Enola Holmes, like both of those were like very heavily marketed.
They went in on those. When it's also interesting too, because they acquire a lot of films as well, so they don't have like stake in the actual production of them. if that makes sense.
Like the Lovebirds.
They just buy them and then they put them out. You know what I mean? I think it's a little bit different. They're kind of going from day one, like ground zero, and then building them up. Because Pieces of a Woman, they just bought and then they're releasing it. And same thing with Malcolm and Marie. But I mean, they spent, $30 million on Malcolm and Marie. So I think they certainly want people to watch it, but I think they're also relying a lot on just the popularity of the stars and, the Euphoria fans kind of coming over as well. And just, I'm sure word of mouth will also be like relatively positive. It seems like the critics that have seen it so far have enjoyed it for the most part. So,
and I know Jake just in our group had raised that as like I hope we're not getting Wonder Woman here with like a select group of critics seeing it. But the fact that this is, okay, we just released the teaser the same day and we're trying to build hype by lifting the embargo the same day. And the fact that it's a month in advance, like I think that those are all good signs, especially with like how positive the reviews were, that we wouldn't be having hype out there for so long in advance if this was going to be bad.
Right. No, Malcolm and Marie, we talked about this, I think almost, I don't even know what time of year it was last year when we were saying, I was the guest and you and Jake were still co-hosting it. And I think the announcement had come out that they were making this movie in like July or whenever it was. And we were like, we'll see, they wrote it so quickly. They made it so quickly. Like, is it going to be messy? Like how much substance is there going to be? But, I've seen, some complaints here and there about maybe the writing or just how it's, a very, isolated, like single location type of movie. I think in general, I have high hopes. I mean, it seems like, and we also saw the Euphoria special where it was Sam Levinson wrote
Two
it.
people talking for an hour. Like that's basically what this looks like it's going to be as well.
Yeah. And of course, this movie is going to be like twice as long as that Euphoria special was. But, I think, of course, the dynamics are going to be totally different, the material and everything. So I'm optimistic. I mean, I'm more optimistic now than I ever have been, I think. I'm not.
What did you think of what we saw, like style wise from I know we had seen like stills from
Right.
that were in black and white, but I don't think we didn't know going into the trailer release that it was going to be a full movie in black and white, or just like also stylistically like the labyrinth music, which is always iconic, or like the sort of almost breaking the fourth wall, like monologue style.
Yeah, well, I had it. I mean, I think they had announced that they had shot it in black and white before, like the trailer even.
Well, oops, that's on me then.
Yeah, you're right though. I expected, seeing still photos from the set and seeing the actual footage of the movie is different for sure. I think on the photography front, I think it looks amazing. It looks beautiful. I saw someone mention one of my mutuals on Twitter, Kyle, he said that it's the same film stock because it was shot on 35 millimeter film, which I think is really neat. And they said that it's the same film stock that Robert Eggers used to shoot The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, that black and white film stock, which I think is super cool. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I think, I completely disagree with this line of thinking, of course, but some people are, not crazy about watching things that aren't in color or watching things that are in one location and they're just talking or, things like that. So it'd be interesting to see, we were talking about Euphoria, of course, because Sam Levinson, writer and director of both of these, and Euphoria, it's usually, apart from that one special episode, it's all over the place, and there's a bunch of different characters and there's a ton of music and color and just the things that they do with it. And this, it's like
chaos.
it's like I think Levinson almost took it as like a challenge for himself
to show his versatility and that he's not just give me mass chaos on screen and like frenetic pacing.
Yeah.
And I can do more than just that. So exactly. I agree with that.
And on top of that, there are other elements for sure. Like, I think people complain about the whole, and again, these are, I'd say a vocal minority at times, and sometimes not even that vocal, but some people complain about, writing and just directing like teenage characters or like, set in like a high school setting. Here, of course, it's like an adult, like, I'm not sure if they're married, but a couple. And it's talking about like the film industry, and that's obviously completely removed from what a high school environment is like, or what the conflicts can be found there. And also just the fact that, some people complain about Euphoria being too white, like they need more, people of color involved in the cast and everything. And here, of course, we have two, Black actors on screen. And I think it's just something that he wanted to do, again, to show versatility, but also to kind of, get some criticisms off of him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely, I can see all that. But we also had any final thoughts on Malcolm and Marie before we move on?
No, nothing really. I watched the trailer, I think, just the one time. I was surprised I even let myself do that, because I try to avoid it if I can for some films.
I watched it twice. I was very into it.
It was a real solid trailer. I'm excited. I saw just enough, and I think it's gonna be real good. So I'm excited for just a few weeks away now.
February 5th on Netflix, I believe. So that's definitely what we will have a podcast reviewing that. So keep an eye out. But we also got a first look at another late awards contender that Johnny mentioned off the top. And this one seems to be on the, I guess, sort of opposite end of the spectrum for the most part. And that is Cherry, starring Tom Holland, which is it directed by or just produced by the Russo brothers?
Oh, no, the Russos wrote and directed this.
Okay, so Russo brothers of Avengers fame wrote and directed this. And, we didn't get a full trailer. This was more of just like a first look clip of Tom Holland as the character, like as he's enrolling in the military, basically. And, same thing of the first look, and then the actual embargo dropping that same day with the premiere. This is going on Apple TV Plus, but I saw mainly bad reviews here. From what I could tell, people calling it a mess and that it was just like all over the place and not good. But then I will say I did see a few NCFCA members who were like, this was great. I loved this. Like, this floored me. So like, those people are, yes, usually very positive outlooks on everything, but like not all bad for this, which I'm hearing. So at least there's that.
It's going to be something. What did you think? Okay, before we get into like, I guess, our preconceptions or anything else expectation wise, what did you think of actually what we got to see in that clip, which wasn't super long? I think it was just over a minute maybe, or
it was about a minute. I'm not crazy about the voiceover, like narration from Tom Holland.
Yeah, no.
As he's like narrating his own actions, which, I mean, I know it wasn't him, but in a previous Tom Holland movie, In the Devil All the Time, I was not a fan of the narrator there either.
I was not a fan of that either, no.
So I'm not sure why he keeps doing these movies with narrators, but I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I think he'll be pretty fun as Nathan Drake.
Oh yeah.
I think
his
most impressive dramatic performance to this day is when he was like 11 years old in The Impossible. Like, right. He was great. Have you seen that movie, the tsunami movie from back?
I have not seen the movie. I have seen like clips and things. He looks, I mean, he's
right. He's great in that, and he's like 11 years old. I feel like he just keeps getting stuck. I know he's like loyal to the Russos, and they obviously have that Marvel connection, but I just want to see my guy have some. Again, haven't seen the movie at all, so I may regret saying this later if I come out loving it. But I don't know. It's just I want my guy to succeed.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, not crazy about this clip. It looks like what I expected it to based on what I had been hearing. I think it's just the Russos trying extra hard to show that they're very serious and like real filmmakers.
Movie makers.
Movie makers. This is a Joe and Anthony Russo movie, and that's what
it says on the poster
Apple
instead of
wants
the film,
to
instead
know.
of saying film.
Yeah. So I think, and I just a real quick correction. They did not. This is based on a novel, of course, but it is based on a screenplay from two women that wrote it. So not the brothers adapting it on the screenplay, but they did both direct it. And this is the first film, you know, they did like rapid fire with Winter Soldier and Civil War and Infinity War and Endgame. But now this is their post Marvel existence. And, you know, it sounds like it's going to be pretty experimental, for better or for worse. I've also read a little bit about how they edited the film while they were actually filming it. So as the footage was completed, to see what they were like missing, or if they needed to rewrite or reshoot parts of the film. That doesn't like inspire confidence necessarily. I mean, I've heard of that being done before. I think Ridley Scott does that a lot. But I don't know. This doesn't seem my jam, honestly. I'm not totally sure. Like, again, I always like to make my own decisions, of course, but my decision so far is that I don't like how this sounds or looks, and you know, maybe I'll give it a look once it lands on Apple TV Plus in March. But I think I could easily see myself skipping this and not missing anything.
Yeah, I mean, I will say before we move on, gotta respect the Russos. They're the definition of no man left behind. You know, looking out for their family. Everybody eats. Because what they had, you mentioned the post Avengers. They had Extraction, which they produced, which had Chris Hemsworth in it. Now this with Tom Holland, and then The Gray Man with Chris Evans. So they're hooking up their family. I appreciate that loyalty.
They are. I'm excited. You know, if this is a miss for them, you know, I love their Marvel films, of course. If this is a miss for them, hey, you know, it is what it is. I have hopes, and you know, am excited about The Gray Man. So, yeah, if it is a miss, just move on. And I'm sure they're not going to be too sad because they're extremely rich and successful. So,
yeah, they won't dwell long on this one, I don't think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, couple pieces of A24 news before we get into our review.
Boom.
I feel like one is definitely more up Johnny's alley, and the other is more up mine. I feel like we're both excited for both of them, but one is more me and one is more Johnny. So mine is A24 Wonder Kids. Alan Kim, the star of Minari, and Elsie Fisher, star of 8th Grade, are teaming up in a new film called Latchkey Kids. Alan Kim will play a bright 9-year-old who befriends an eccentric teenager played by Elsie Fisher, and she's also looking to escape a dysfunctional life and mother. The pair faces a considerable obstacle. Local enforcement believes Kim's character might be offing his babysitters. Can you imagine a cutest little Alan Kim being a suspect for murdering babysitters? Like, this sounds incredible already.
Yeah, I love this. I I think if I heard just the premise, I'd be like, but knowing that it's these two, like, this casting is just perfect. And I am curious to, you know, see. I don't know if is this an original script. I didn't dive too much into this article, and I saw it pop up the other day. But I'd be curious to know, you know, the writer, who ends up directing it, who the producers are on it, because I think it could be like something really unique and fun and quite good if they really bring it all together, because this casting and just the fun premise of it sounds like a win.
Yeah, and I think this is really the Elsie Fisher, she after 8th grade and like being all world and becoming a star after that, she's done like voice work in a couple Despicable Me movies, and I want to say she had like one other either like supporting role or something, but this will be her first, it sounds like her first like return to like stardom since then.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Like, I loved 8th Grade. I thought it was hysterical and that she was just incredible. So I'm very excited to see her and to see more from Alan Kim.
Yeah, Alan Kim especially, because I think as good as he was in Minari, I think it, and as crazy as it might sound, I think he's been somewhat overlooked, just because he is
An overlooked 9-year-old.
Exactly. I mean, he was just so dynamite in that movie, and I'm excited to hear that he's already getting more work, and it'll be cool to see them team up and seeing them grow.
They got to
bit.
strike before he enters his awkward phase.
Yeah,
he's not like adorable anymore.
Yep, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm game. I looked it up. The director isn't someone that I've heard of before. It's John J. Boudion, who last directed Rockaway, which I have not heard of or seen. And it's written by an original script by Megan Clary. So, yeah, it could be. I think it could be a fun. I mean, if A24 is involved, they must have trust in what is being put together.
Another example of looking out for your people. Shout out to A24.
Shout out.
All right, what's the last piece of news here, Johnny?
Oh man, this was something nice to pop up on my timeline this week, and that is Alex Garland, writer and director of Ex Machina and Annihilation, which he adapted from a novel, is returning to the big screen. He's doing a original film that he's writing and directing entitled Men, and he's reuniting with A24. He's going back to his roots because Ex Machina, of course, was at A24. And he has Scott Rudin, his producing partner who backed him on both of those films, returning for this one. And it stars Jessie frickin' Buckley from I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which was one of my favorite films of 2020, and she was just excellent in that. And she's in talks to star in the film, and she'll be playing a woman who goes on a solo vacation to the English countryside following the death of her ex-husband. I mean, this is just perfect. I mean, I don't know about you. I know you weren't as high on I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
I wasn't as high on the movie, but I definitely respected her and like appreciated her performance. So I'm high on her.
Yeah. And then of course, Ex Machina Annihilation. What are your feelings about Alex Garland in general? Yeah,
both of those are. I know you're like the huge sci-fi guy.
Oh yeah.
But like, both of those are awesome. I randomly, I want to say I actually had to watch Ex Machina for a class in at UNC, and then Annihilation I had obviously heard of and seen like the marketing for it, and finally I didn't get to see it in theaters, but I watched it on Amazon I think afterwards. But both really good, very underrated, like low. I feel like they have like a cult following of like the A24 people or just like Alex Garland people, but like mainstream didn't get the appreciation that they both deserved as like sci-fi masterpieces.
Yeah, and I loved Ex Machina. I didn't catch it in theaters because that was a little bit before I like got out of high school and really got more into film. But I saw Annihilation 5 times in theaters, and I was just obsessed with that movie for a while. And I was worried though because Ex Machina, of course, was at A24, and that was very well received and did well. And then Annihilation, which was at Paramount, got kind of shafted. There was a lot of like infighting behind the scenes, and Paramount wanting to tamper with the film and change the ending and like just change elements of the story. And thankfully, Scott Rudin, the producer who I mentioned earlier, was backing Alex Garland and said, "No, we're not changing this." And then Paramount got cold feet, and they shipped off the international distribution rights to Netflix. So outside of the US,
I do remember this movie had like just come out, and it was actually, so it was like the spring of my junior year, and Rebecca was studying abroad in London, and I went to go visit her for spring break, and then like British Netflix, like this was just there.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what? This is in theaters at home.
Yeah. No, that's what happened. So, like I said, I was fortunate enough to see it many times in theaters here, but it's cool now that he kind of, he went and did the Devs show, the limited series over at Hulu, which I still need to explore. We'll definitely check that out before this movie comes out. That got really good reviews. But he seemed a little bit, unsure what his film future was, if he was going to get, producer partners on another movie and what that would look like if he had a good story to write. So this was a welcome relief to see that he is in fact doing another movie. He's writing it. He's going back to A24. So good news all around. And I think a lot of people will be happy about this, especially film fans.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I know we'll probably get some like very cool but very overpriced A24 merch from like both of these movies.
Oh yeah.
So maybe we'll have to pull the trigger on that. But this is exciting. I feel like it's never not exciting when there's A24. I'm basic for like being one of those like A24 diehards as a film fan, but like I mean they produce, so
they do produce
literally and
distribute
figuratively. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So exciting news all around. Shall we get into our Pieces of a Woman review?
We shall.
I wanted to stay at home. She sounds really good. Hi, baby. I wanted the baby to decide when she wanted to come.
My daughter came into this world. For the time that she did. And I can't bring her back.
All right. So I'll introduce it, I guess, but Johnny, you love this movie. I don't want to spoil anything of what you're going to say, but feel free to take the reins here because this is like you said off the top, you have seen this, you've seen it twice. You watched it quite a bit ago. It's one of your tops that you mentioned last week on the top 5 of 2020. You wrote the full article about it. So this is your movie, but I'll introduce it off the top. New drama from Netflix, like you mentioned, came out this past week on January 7th. It had a limited theatrical run starting at the end of 2020. So it is, I guess they kind of changed the rules, but it is an awards contender. I know Vanessa Kirby is going hard, hopefully, for a Best Actress nominee. Also stars Shia LaBeouf and Ellen Burstyn. Pretty solid reviews across the board. Rotten Tomatoes, 76% critics score. No audience score yet because I guess, like I said, 3 days ago was when this was widely available. Johnny, what is your I guess mine's a 77, so I'm pretty high on it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Johnny, I'm turning it over. What do you have? What's the rating? What's the rundown here?
Yeah, give it a solid 87 out of 100. On Letterboxd, gave it 4.5 out of 5. And that was the first time I watched it. That's what I gave it. And after watching it the second time, that's still what I gave it. I was,
stand by that.
Looking to see if it was going to hold up, if I was a little too emotional that first time watching it, like overhyping it. But no, it works just as well for me the second time.
That's always good when you get to you like.
Hell yeah.
I very, very different movies, but like we talked about it a lot in game. Like the first time I saw it, I was like,
right. Yeah.
I was like, I can't give on Letterboxd. I think I was like, I can't give this an accurate rating because of just like the pure excitement around this and like the emotional attachment. So I had to revisit it the second time to make sure that those still stood, like my evaluations were still valid. And so to hear that happened for you here, that's exciting that it really did live up to the expectations and the hype.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, you were talking about Endgame because that movie, especially, I saw it the 3 times in theaters and then I just recently rewatched it for the first time at home. And certainly a different experience at home by myself in a bedroom compared to a packed IMAX theater on opening weekend. So not hearing people clap and cheer and like cry and laugh, like all that stuff that kind of, it might mess with your estimation or your feelings about it. I did have that reaction. So definitely worth checking out. If you're kind of unsure what you think of a movie or you kind of are interested to see how your feelings change, I think revisiting something is always like the key to that.
Well, let's talk about first-time visitors for this movie, like myself. This movie, I'll give a quick plot synopsis before we dive into breaking it down. But Martha, played by Vanessa Kirby, and Sean, Shia LaBeouf, are a Boston couple on the verge of parenthood whose lives change irrevocably when a home birth ends in unimaginable tragedy. Thus begins a year-long odyssey for Martha, who must navigate her grief while working through fractious relationships with Sean and her domineering mother, played by Ellen Burstyn, along with the publicly vilified midwife, played by Molly Parker, whom she must face in court. So I know we're talking about clapping and cheering and stuff with Marvel, but like no clapping and cheering going on here. This is some heavy stuff.
Yeah, certainly not a light, breezy film going experience by any means. We knew and had heard about it. Venice Film Festival is when it premiered, and Vanessa Kirby won Best Actress at the film festival. And shortly after was when Netflix bought it up. I knew about, there's a super long, like one take birthing sequence, and it's like their baby dies, and it's like about what happens after that. And so I was, I prepared myself as much as I could for that scenario. What did you know going into it? Like, kind of what were your expectations on that front?
I mean, obviously from hearing your description, editing your review for the website, I knew like I had a general idea of everything. Like I knew that it was going to be the birthing sequence. I knew that was a thing, that it was about 20 minutes, that it was one take, that it was super heavy and well done. So all of that I knew going in, but after that, I'm not going to I edited your review at the end of November and then didn't watch this until last week. So I didn't remember. It's not like I knew plot points or any specifics or anything like that. So basically after the birthing sequence, I didn't really know what to expect plot wise or just like film, like what direction the film was going to go.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But I mean, the birthing sequence itself, let's talk about that, because that was your thrust, right? You get like a small introduction basically.
Yeah. There's like kind
and
of
then you're like, here are these people. And that's basically what you're given. And then it's like,
oh man,
okay, the baby is coming. This is happening. And so it's just 1917 in a house with a baby being born.
Yeah. It's certainly from a technical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, an acting standpoint, it's, the centerpiece of the film in a lot of ways, just because it's been talked about the most, but also within the context of the movie itself, it serves as, talking about the structure of this movie, it's kind of difficult to really break down, but it kind of serves almost as like a prologue to the movie itself.
I mean, yeah, it's obviously like the biggest quote unquote like action in the film, like, but it's also the event that sets everything else into motion. So it really like lays the groundwork for what's to come.
I mean, even the title card doesn't appear until after this scene ends, which is like close. I'm not sure exactly what the timing is, but it's over 20 minutes into the movie. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the filmmakers are going for. And then of course, from there, I knew, that the baby is going to die. If you know anything about this movie, unless you're going in completely blind. And still like, again, I'm going to ask kind of about your experience, but for me, it was like at the beginning of it, when she's, going to labor, the contractions are like really kicking off. I'm like still filled with like some sort of like, I don't know, naive
hope excitement for new life.
Joy. Because oh my gosh, like this couple, like they're going through this process, like they're so excited to have this baby, and you kind of it feels so real. And it's part of it, of course, can be attributed to the long take aspect of it, because you are totally
it's happening in real time. Like,
in real time. You're not going anywhere. You're, basically skin to skin with these people. And it's a very intimate situation. And she is like, she's cursing up a storm. She's like, this is awful. This is so miserable. She's like burping a lot. She has like gas built up. And it doesn't feel like dressed up. It doesn't feel disingenuous. It's sincere and like true to life, I feel. And while I know you weren't as compelled by the rest of the movie, I thought that it did a good job of establishing that tone and kind of maintaining that through the rest of the movie, but it was built up because of this like sequence.
Yeah, I mean, if I could like split this into the opening 20 minutes and then the other half, I'd say like opening 20 minutes, 5 stars, second half, like 2.5 stars. Like
damn,
maybe 3, maybe like, well, I mean that averages out. That's like a 3.5 average.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like there are good moments in the second half, like not even second half, the like last 2/3, 3/4 of the movie, but like it just like from how incredible this opening sequence was, like I couldn't help but be underwhelmed by what was to come.
And
that's their problem. They set the bar too high.
Well, see, that's the thing too, is that I disagree about. I mean, first off, kind of the last comment I guess I'll make about this opening sequence is that despite like that feeling of excitement and kind of like joy that you feel earlier on, even despite knowing where it's going, the utter sickness that I felt like once it starts to go south and you realize something isn't right, like before even like the main characters realize something isn't right, is like I haven't felt like that watching a movie in a while, probably.
Yeah, I also, it's like also, so it makes it worse because it's like, I mean, this isn't really a spoiler since it's like, well, first of all, spoiler alert, but like this is the opening sequence of the movie, so I mean it's not gonna like ruin the payoff or something, but like the fact that all of it, like you think it's going wrong and then like the baby is still born and like cries and is like alive and they're happy and then this happens, but it's like I know that it's not gonna work out, but then that little bit happens and I'm like, wait, am I sure that this doesn't work out? Like there's a baby, it's a lot, and then it just like kicks you again.
I agree for sure. I thought I didn't expect that or know about that, and I like as you pointed out, it's like that last second of hope, or like
it just makes it all the more devastating.
Yeah, and so you get into, then from there, that's essentially a prologue, get into the title, and then it takes you into the post-traumatic section of the film where Martha is, a lot of people say, like, a lot of people being parents in this case, but like the worst trauma that you can experience as a person is like losing a child. And you definitely can see that in a lot of ways, like in just, I mean, she feels and this isn't meant like in a derogatory sense, but you feel like she's kind of like a shell. And and not just her, but Shia LaBeouf's character and their relationship as a whole is just kind of like a shell of what it was and what we saw prior to that scene in like the first 5 minutes of the movie, where they're kind of like joking around a lot and like they seem like they're happy together and they're very upbeat and positive. And then you just get into this, the very first thing you see after the birth sequence is her like going to work, like returning from what should have been.
It's after we've already seen her like leaving all excited and expecting, and then like coming back. And at first I couldn't tell. I guess they established later that it's like she has used up her maternity leave and is then coming back. But like I couldn't tell at first if it was like people were looking because they're like, wait, why is she here? And this is like the week after losing the baby, or if it's like, oh, we all know why she's like,
I think it was
welcome back, but we all know it is the latter. But like I kind of like
it's
either
awful.
one was just like awful.
It's awful. And she's like I know that of course Vanessa Kirby talked to women who she talked to multiple women who actually lost children like during birth, which props to her for like that commitment and level of like research,
doing it justice. Yeah.
Because I don't know. I mean, that's even as a journalist, like a reporter who's talked to people who have like lost loved ones, like that's tough. But it feels very real. And I know, you know, the director of this film, Cornell Mandruzzo, and the writer.
Nice. I respect that. I wasn't going to attempt it.
The writer of the film is based on a stage play from.
I could see that. I didn't know that, but Poland. I could see that.
From Poland. So shout out to my Poles. And Kata Weber, she wrote it and adapted it from her play. I think he was involved with the play as well. But apparently, I don't know if they still are partners or previously were, but I guess this was written like from their personal experiences, so it's not totally clear like if they actually went through this or what. But I think in all the elements, at least, I would say, if nothing else from this movie, you can appreciate like the level of authenticity, at least in like from a woman's perspective, especially like a mother's perspective, like the physical aftermath, the mental like and emotional aftermath. Because like even when she's at work, I think it's right after she like kind of goes back to her office and everyone's looking at her, like she goes to the bathroom and she's wearing like, I don't know if the correct term would be a diaper, but that's like essentially what it is, from like bleeding after the fact, which I didn't even know was a thing. I mean, that's my ignorance, of course, as a man.
Yeah, they don't do any sort of like sugar coating or trying to make this like more romantic than it is. Like it's devastating, and they hit you with every last detail of like just how devastating and the aftermath and the effects of everything are.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's like a good way of putting it. Like another example would be shortly after that, she's at some sort of store and she's like looking at clothes and she sees like I think it was like a little boy. Some child is like looking at the clothes and she's kind of
like starstruck by him.
She's kind of, she's like in this kind of almost like trance where she gets lost a child and here's a child like right in front of her and she's just kind of looking at him, and he like they make eye contact and they're kind of like just staring at each other, and then she looks down and realizes that she is like lactating and like it's like coming through her shirt, and it's just like, damn, like this shit, like that's really what it's like. And of course she is not feeding a child, she's not breastfeeding, and so she's lactating still, and she's like experiencing pain and like a lot of soreness like in her breasts from just not like, if you're breastfeeding, the milk is going someplace. Here it's not going anywhere. So that's just like another like attention to detail and just like an unfortunate like true to life result of like losing a child in the birth process. The performances, Zach, what did you think? You know, we were talking about awards potential as well. Vanessa Kirby, in her own right, but also like compared to other contenders this year, and as well as like Ellen Burstyn as her mother. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty sure that I put Vanessa Kirby on my ballot for she did not get my vote for NCICA, but I'm pretty sure I put her on my nomination ballot. I mean, incredible performance. Like I think she carries this movie beyond just the like the opening sequence, but like she's the reason why like I was still like invested in the whole like after birth part. I mean, I know we've got like a pretty strong field of best actress contenders. Her Frances McDormand seems to be a lock. Carey Mulligan, Promising Young Woman, that was my vote. Viola Davis. I mean, I think that she's a strong. I would feel comfortable if I was wagering that she's going to be there as a nominee. I don't know if she'll win, but I think it'd be very deserving that if she were to be one of the picks. How about your expectations?
I think that's a solid analysis, and like, of course, not trying to be reductive, just talking about like awards, because who cares at the end of the day. But like, I think she's certainly deserving, and I think she's right there in the mix. Deserves to be there. I from all the performances I've seen, I think she's my favorite and the best that I've seen. So I'd have no problem if she wins. Of course, I don't see that happening necessarily. I think Frances McDormand's like very, very strong right now. And then of course, Zendaya is like coming out of nowhere. And we'll see how that kind of plays out as well. But also Ellen Burstyn, I thought was like phenomenal. I had not really seen her in anything else. I don't think. I know she was in like Requiem for a Dream and some other, she's an acting legend. So it's kind of like, it kind of crazy that I haven't seen her in much else, but she's like won like an Oscar and like a Emmy and like pretty much every acting award there is. So I would love to see her. She's would be like the oldest Oscar nominee ever for acting if she gets it. So I think if nothing else, that would be really cool. But I think she's more than deserving of being in there. I think supporting actress is a little bit messier, like less certain.
Yeah, I'm looking at Variety's predictions here. And we've got Olivia Colman for The Father,
yes.
Maria Bakalova for Borat,
that's wild.
Amanda Seyfried for Mank, Ellen Burstyn as the number 4 nominee, and then Yoo Jung-yoon from Minari as the 5. And then next in line, we've got that would be it. Really all over the place from Ellen Burstyn to Borat too. But the next in line for anybody who might edge her out, Jodie Foster, the Mauritanian, Glenn Close, Hillbilly Elegy, Saoirse Ronan, Ammonite. So those are like the next 3 contenders, I guess.
Okay.
But
right.
I mean, I could see, it seems like that's kind of like you said, her performance is deserving, but kind of like respect to a legend as well, that they would nominate her as well.
Yeah. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm pulling for him for sure.
Any sort of beyond like acting categories, what do you foresee here? Any sort of screenplay or best picture or anything like that?
I don't foresee really anything outside of the 2 main women performances. I just, unfortunately, I would put it up for multiple technical categories and best picture and all that if I was involved in voting, but I don't think it will be, getting much attention outside of the 2. Vanessa.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of reflected in the like you mentioned on Twitter, and in this episode about Netflix's marketing, unless it's like their Mank or their like their lock, what they're trying to push for like the trial of the Chicago 7. Like,
yeah,
you said that movie came out and they didn't tweet a single thing about it on the day that it came out on Netflix. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's like you're in. It's weird too because they, if they bought it after it was made and already premiered and everything, so they bought it like in October or whatever. It's just weird, or September. It's like, why even? I'm glad that they bought it. I'm glad it's available because it's despite that, it's still doing like well in the US. I saw it entered, I think it was either Thursday or Friday. It entered like the top 10 on Netflix. They always have, for showing what's popular. And then last time I checked, sometime last night, it was number 3. So that's impressive. I mean,
without being a big push that they're still able to get that out there.
Being like a dumb like action flick or a new Adam Sandler comedy or something like that. Like that says a lot. I mean, Mank, you just mentioned, I don't think ever got inside the top 10. So despite them doing considerable marketing for that, I think that just wasn't connecting with their audience. So I've been definitely recommending it, especially I think, women, if nothing else, would take, something away, especially people who have actually experienced childbirth probably. I watched it with my girlfriend the second time and her mom loved it. And, she was like, that all like was very accurate and like felt very real. And she was into it. So, and I think just the last thing I really want to hit on real quick before we move on to the last segment of the show is just, yes, the birth sequence is fantastic. Yes, the acting is fantastic. But for me, I think why I connected so much with it more than like you, for example, was just, I felt, and of course it's like everything's subjective and like how you react emotionally and everything, but like that gut punch and like all the emotion in that opening with the birth and losing the child and everything, I thought they did a good job sustaining that into the second half with there's a big showdown between Martha, Vanessa Kirby's character, and her mother, played by Ellen Burstyn. And it's like they're just going toe to toe, and it's at like this family like dinner like gathering. And it kind of plays out like that and the birthing sequence are kind of it's like a duo of scenes, like kind of like set piece scenes almost, because and knowing that it came from like a stage play, you can kind of see that those would probably be two of the biggest scenes in that play. But the camera, it like does like a long take similar to that, and it just kind of it drifts through this apartment, this home, and then it culminates with like this huge like emotional, like kind of like a catharsis and also like a revelation. And it's just like, damn, like these emotions like are really hitting for me. Like they're really like acting their asses off right now. And then after that, you kind of get into the home stretch of the movie. And I was going to ask you about this as well. What did you expect? Like, I guess while you were watching the movie and getting towards the conclusion, like how did you feel it was going to resolve? Like, were you surprised by the ending, like where they ended up taking things? Because for me, I thought that was one, really surprising. Like I guess it was not what I expected, and two, I thought it again like was emotional and like powerful, and like despite how the film played out and like how difficult it could be to watch at times, it felt like the right kind of solution to everything.
So I just kind of a couple questions, I guess, clarifying. Are you talking about like in the court, like the courtroom ending, or like the
Both.
apple tree children? Like
I was referring to the courtroom especially, but the ending, the very end as well.
I mean, I think the courtroom kind of that, I don't know if it was necessarily like a surprise. I feel like it kind of like hinted at it with like her morals showing like throughout the movie and stuff. Of course, this is what it happens is that she's like basically put on the stand to like help convict the midwife who people are like demonizing for having murdered her child, basically. And what she ends up doing is taking ownership and saying that yes, this happened, yes, she was like responsible, but I don't think this was like malicious or with any ill will. Like I don't think she thought she was doing the wrong thing. So like redeeming, basically like setting her free, not I don't know, but the legal jargon, like basically I would call that like dropping the charges against her or whatever. So that she was not going to like go to prison. And I think that's the right thing. Obviously it's an impossible situation to like put yourself in and imagine, but like, I feel like just like morally speaking, like I did not think at any point watching the birthing sequence that the woman was intentionally doing anything or had like ill will or was negligent, like to an extent of like deserving life in prison or whatever. I don't remember what the specific like terms were, but like I'm sure that woman felt like horrible herself, and like obviously nothing can bring back that child, but like to throw her in prison didn't seem like the right answer to me.
Yeah. Well, they have that great line that I loved and like really like remembered the second time where she says, or like they're talking also about like financial compensation. Like throughout the movie, they're kind of talking about, you know, what they can get in a settlement from her, like millions of dollars potentially. And in the courtroom, she's just like, any sort of like conclusion here where like she goes to jail for any period of time or like I get some sort of money out of it, it's basically like saying that there is like a price you can put on it or like a definitive result that should be given based on like my child dying. And she's like you can't do it. Like it's impossible to put a price on it or say that, oh, this person deserves this because my baby like died.
Right.
And I thought I just thought her monologue was really good. And not only of course her acting, which I think we've said enough is fantastic, but I thought it was a well written and kind of, it felt like a legitimate, like it while it kind of surprised me a little bit just because I guess I wasn't expecting it. It made sense, I think, for everyone, like all the characters.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Any final thoughts before we move on to our top 5 most anticipated of 2021?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. It's a damn good movie, in my opinion. I mean, again,
emotionally prepare yourself before you watch this.
Oh yeah, definitely get some tissues ready.
don't just be scrolling through Netflix and be like, I wonder what this is. Let's check it out.
Yeah, but I think everyone could take away, at least something. If you don't love it, I think you would still like elements of it or take something away from it. And it's worth also, I have said this a few times now, but at the very ending where she does kind of, find peace at the end and, scatters her daughter's ashes and then is eventually shown like being able to happily like have a child like later on in her life seemingly is a happy ending to a very miserable otherwise story.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Final segment here. Top 5 most anticipated movies of 2021. The movies we are looking forward to the most, assuming we don't know the future, but assuming that the release schedules stay put. No more shifting, that we're good to go with what's on the calendar at this moment. As always, we're going to go 5-1, alternating picks. Johnny, I know you were kind of coming up with this as we went. You said you had a few everyone knows what number 1 is for you, but you had a couple of game time decisions that you were going to be making. So I'm going to put you on the spot to get things started here with number 5.
This is brutal. Okay, I'm going to say number 5. I'm going to go with, now this isn't officially dated, but it's in the can. And so I think it's safe to assume it'll be out sometime in the next 12 months. But Robert Eggers is The Northman. His follow-up to The Lighthouse. Of course, he did The Witch a few years ago. It's a smaller film, of course. It's not like a huge blockbuster or anything, but I've loved his work so far. I think he has a very unique voice as a filmmaker. I mean, he's a visionary. And I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but I don't think I could imagine any other filmmaker coming up with something.
I mean,
like
if you make a movie like The Lighthouse, I think you have to be called a visionary.
So this is, and again, it has a cool story. From what we've heard, it's kind of 10th century Iceland, a tale of revenge. Like this Nordic prince goes after, I think maybe his uncle after his father's murdered. It has some sort of inspiration from Hamlet, I believe, in a Danish like folktale kind of way. And the cast, I mean, it's stacked. We got Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman, Anya Taylor-Joy, Alexander Skarsgård. So his most star-studded cast yet, and everything we've heard about, the historical accuracy and whatnot. He's re-teaming with a cinematographer who did The Lighthouse, so I can't wait to see what they cooked up this time. It sounds like, from what everyone has said who's involved, it just sounds like something that we haven't really seen before, perhaps. So, hey, and it's interesting too because it's not at A24, it's at Focus Features. So, be curious to see how they market it and how well it does and everything. But I'll be there in the theater day 1 for sure. So hopefully they can get it out this year.
I am a little mixed on. I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm interested to see what it is, but I liked The Witch pretty well. I did not like The Lighthouse, so I'm kind of, this is the make or break for me with him, I guess. But it's like, which way am I gonna lean?
Right.
Number 5 for me is, this one's, I don't know, it's kind of hard, but it's like a very personal one, I guess, just because it's A Quiet Place Part 2. We were so close to getting to see this in 2020. Some people did see it, and then I was literally like, the world shut down on Wednesday. My screening was on Monday. Like, I was so close. But imagine sitting on that review for like over a year and a half.
That's so weird.
But this, like, A Quiet Place was my number 1 of 2018. So like, I was very into that movie. I think that I don't expect this one to be as good, but I'm excited about it nonetheless, just to see like how they explore the world. I love Emily Blunt and John Krasinski just in general, like as people. They're like celebrities that I think would just be like awesome to be friends with. So I'm excited for it, like on a personal level. I don't expect it to be like one of my favorite movies of the year or anything like that, but just like I feel like I had to put it on there just out of respect for my 2018 list.
Hey, I can appreciate that, even if I wasn't like crazy about the first one, like a lot of people were. And that's what's the release date on that? Did you say?
I want to say so.
Like,
it was originally supposed to come out.
Right?
I want to say April. It was originally supposed to come out in March of 2020. Then they moved it to like September of 2020, and now it's April 23rd, 2021. So
Gotcha.
Maybe getting pushed again. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, my number 4 pick. Oh man, it's so tough. I can't. I know in my heart, like I just love the concept of this. So I'm gonna say number 4. Again, another film that isn't dated but has been filmed already. It's in the can. The Tragedy of Macbeth from Joel Coen, one of the Coen brothers, who's directing it, adapting it.
He's breaking off. So much for No Man Left Behind that I was talking about earlier.
I absolutely love Macbeth. It's like my favorite Shakespearean play. And this is just like a dream like project. You got Joel Coen, who is, just a brilliant filmmaker who's been around for decades now. And then what else do I have to say? Denzel Washington as Macbeth and Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth. Are you kidding me? I mean, 2 of our greatest actors living in 2 of the best roles like in all of like Western fiction. And then, Coen brother, Scott Rudin's producing, who's done, I mentioned him earlier, he's done an incredible amount of work. And Bruno Delbonnel coming back as cinematographer, who's done some incredible things, including Inside Llewyn Davis and The Half-Blood Prince. And then, if that's not good enough for you guys, A24 is involved. And that's like a film fan's like dream, right? So I need to see it. I got to see. I feel like there have been, of course, multiple adaptations on film of Macbeth. I haven't seen any, I don't think. I do want to check out the one starring Michael Fassbender from a few years ago. That looks like it'd be pretty interesting. But I'm really, really excited to see what they do with this story. And I think they got a really good team.
Everything you just said is like super exciting to me, except for Macbeth and Shakespeare. But
well, I'm going to be.
But
go ahead.
I would say that if someone like that, what everything else that you said like sounds like the perfect storm to make it in a way that would be like compelling, even to someone who's like is like turned off by the phrase Shakespeare. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm also curious too, because I don't know if it's been said. I want to say maybe it has been confirmed that they are keeping like the classic Shakespearean
diction,
writing for it and language, which I'm a fan. I mean, it's again, I think the writing is spectacular, but I'm going to be very curious to see, what they do with the screenplay, like what kind of world they build, like what the sets look like. I heard they're going to be like very like German expressionist like style. I mean, it's going to be wild, I think. I have high hopes for it. And maybe, they do just enough different stuff to kind of bring in other people who maybe aren't as crazy about Shakespeare in general, like you are.
Well, fingers crossed. We can hope. I mean, I'll still probably see it regardless. So number 4 on my list is, it's very Shakespearean as well. And that is The Suicide Squad from James Gunn.
Oh, man.
Coming in August, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I feel like this is now I don't know. Your list currently has an X at the 3 spot on our Google Doc. So I feel like this might be on your list. If it is, go ahead and jump in. But very excited for this. Obviously, the original was a disaster, but then they were like, let's get James Gunn in here. Let's actually have it be competent. And you've got some like the core. Not necessarily the core, but at least Margot Robbie coming back, who is just incredible as Harley Quinn. You've got a whole new slate of characters joining in. And and just like from everything that we've seen from fandom and teases and everything, it's just like seems to be far less like overly serious like that phase of the DC universe was. And now to kind of see a James Gunn approach to this makes it super exciting.
Well,
so go ahead.
I would say, to counter what you just said, I think Suicide Squad 2016 is not serious at all, actually. I think it's...
Well, I feel like they try and... they well, yes, but they still try and like make it like the like dark, gritty, like over, like not like Birds of Prey. We're gonna have fun with this, you know?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I think that's that David Ayer style that was kind of unavoidable, unfortunately. I'm super excited.
Release the Ayer cut.
I'm so excited. It does come out August 6th. I will be there day one in IMAX. You know, all things safe and whatnot. But yeah, certainly one of my most. I mean, that it's not my number 3. It's not my number 3. It's probably like 6 or 7. But I decided to forego it. My number 3 over here is going to be, and I'm sure this won't end up being the actual title, but for now, The Matrix 4 from Lana Wachowski. She's coming back. She's co-written this with a couple other of her collaborators who worked on things like Cloud Atlas and the show Sense8 on Netflix, for anyone who's seen that. So got some new blood in the writing room, but she's directing it. And man, I just recently revisited The Matrix. I saw it once a couple years ago, and then I've seen it like a couple times in the last few months. It's just an amazing movie. I mean, it's been talked to death, like the original. I am sparing myself from watching the sequels just because I have not heard like anything positive about them, really. But this is years removed from those. And we got Keanu Reeves back as Neo. We got Carrie-Anne Moss back as Trinity. I love them in the original. Ship them extremely hard. And I'm excited to see, you know, after his John Wick kind of revival, having Keanu jump back into that, you know, iconic role that is, you know, informed his entire career, I think is going to be really exciting. And then, you know, I mean, the rest of the cast, I mean, Jessica Henwick, Neil Patrick Harris, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who is rumored to be playing some version of Morpheus, which I think would be awesome. Jada Pinkett Smith. It's just a strong cast. And, you know, I am excited to see what the vision is for this, because it could be anything. I mean, really. And we've seen some set picks. We saw them doing some insane stunts in San Francisco, like jumping off of like 1,000-foot skyscrapers, like for real, like strapped up to wires and whatnot. So, but I just can't turn it down. The Matrix is a very specific kind of world. And as a sci-fi junkie, especially, I'm hoping that they have something that will appeal to fans of the original and kind of maybe course correct what happened with the sequels.
I have not seen The Matrix, so no comment.
Oh,
but I'm excited about your excitement. So
you got to watch it, man.
It's tangible. Maybe by the time it sounds like I don't need to watch 2 I don't need to watch 2 or 3. So I think I'll just check out 1 by December. I can do that. Number three on my list is a third film, and that is Spider-Man 3.
Ew.
Subtitle TBD. Just, you know, obviously we've got MCU with Black Widow, we've got the shows, we've got Eternals, but this is the one that everybody's waiting for. This is going to be, from all the speculation, we know some things confirmed, some things who knows, some things heavily rumored, but like it's just going to be an absolute blast to see whoever ends up showing up to continue on from where the Spider-Man story left off after Far From Home, and hints of a multiverse, you know, whatever ends up happening. It's just going to be a blast. And I think that this is going to open up the doors for the next phase of just like how crazy things are going to get in the MCU.
Yeah, I cannot argue with that. I think that would also be in my top 10, probably. I mean, it's a lot of unknowns at this point, but also a lot of, man, if they do it right, it could be pretty spectacular, or amazing, or ultimate.
Ha ha ha.
Just throwing in as many Spider-Man puns as possible. Our top two are the exact same, Zach, so we can both fanboy over them right now.
Let's do it together.
Number 2, Mission Impossible 7. That is, I'm sure, not going to be the actual title. We'll get some sort of subtitle in there from Christopher McQuarrie. But Fallout was, a masterpiece. One of the best action movies ever made. I'm sure you would not be too far off with that sentiment.
I completely agree with that. I co-sign.
And I've been a fan of this franchise going back to, I saw Ghost Protocol in theaters 10 years ago. I loved it ever since then.
Has it really been 10 years since Ghost Protocol?
Don't say it. Don't say it out loud. I shouldn't have said it. But, and I've revisited the entire series, multiple times, every time a new one comes out. So I'm a big Ethan Hunt fan. Tom Cruise, as crazy as he may be in real life, he's a man of his craft. There's no doubt about that. And the supporting cast is always awesome as well. And we have some new additions to this movie as usual. And the locations look epic and everything so far. I have to see how the story continues. And yeah, I'm sure they're going to find some way to up the ante in this one.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said. I actually have yet to see 1 and 2. I actually just happened to jump into the franchise with Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
Which is another great one. Philip Seymour Hoffman, that was an all-time movie.
Yeah.
And then to go on from there. So maybe, I guess I'll probably try and do a full series rewatch before this comes out. But
yeah, you should.
I
will say real quick, I have not and will not watch the second one because I've heard it's just bad. And
you don't want to have that stain on the franchise.
All the other ones are so at least pretty damn good to amazing or masterpiece level. So, and I think I can leave it out for now, but you should definitely check. I'll be marathoning them for sure at some point this year before the new one. Maybe we'll have to do some sort of retrospective or run up of them, perhaps.
MI pod. But yeah, it's after everything, the franchise on its own is just great, but after everything that went down in Fallout, that movie was, you hit the nail on the head, one of the best action movies ever made. It was one of my second favorite of the year in general. So yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to see this continue forward with Christopher McQuarrie.
Hell yeah.
All right, Johnny, let's just go ahead and end the podcast. Everybody knows number 1, so no sense in talking about it.
It's Dune, folks. Denny, it's funny though, because when I hopped into the Google Doc, I was honestly a little slightly surprised to see that you did in fact have it at number 1 over even, the comic book and Marvel and then everything else.
There's not in a traditional year, I feel like there would be, I don't know. I'm more mainstream, I feel than you, and I'm willing to put a Marvel movie as my number 1 or something like that. But of the main Marvel slate, Spider-Man 3 is the Sony kind of off-brand, but Eternals, and I'm excited to see what happens in Eternals just because it's new. But I'm not super pumped for Black Widow.
Yeah, I
almost put Luca on the list, but that wouldn't be a number 1 just because of Pixar, being a fan there. There's no Star Wars next year. There's no, I don't know. But so this is just this is the event. And I think if it hadn't been for you and this podcast and just you and Jake, getting me to read the book and getting me into it, I enjoyed the book, but I didn't I'm not nearly on your level of just absolute diehard Dune fan, but just the spectacle of this. And there's no denying Denny and everything that he's capable of. And I love all of the movies that I've seen from him. So this is the main event for next year, I would say, for this year. So yeah, I think it's pretty locked in as my number 1 just to see what it's all about, man.
Yeah. It couldn't be more excited for it. Of course, I'll be there many times in IMAX, I am sure. And thankfully it is, bittersweet that it got delayed a year, but it was the right call, and it'll be coming out October 1st in theaters. We'll see what ends up happening with that HBO Max situation, but it will definitely at least be in theaters. So I'm excited, and I'll be single-handedly getting this thing apart too, if that's what it takes. But it's going to be a great year. I really do think it will be, and we said that I think at the beginning of last year. Without knowing a pandemic would be going down. But I think, fingers crossed, we'll make up for that.
Yeah, I have high expectations, high hopes. Hopefully we aren't just like shredded again, all of our spirits just absolutely dampened. But, you know, we have hope right now. And there's beyond just our five here, each of our fives. I think there's a lot to look forward to in the slate. And that means lots of Inside the Film Room to look forward to as well, because we'll be breaking it all down as we go along, week in and week out. And I'm excited to do it with Johnny here.
Hell yeah, man. Me too.
Well, that wraps up our episode today. Thank you all for listening. As always, we really appreciate it. All of you loyal fans out there who follow us and tune in as we go through our journey of movies.
As always, I love doing this podcast and having you folks listen and support us. Follow us on Twitter if you don't already. We're doing great over there. Instagram, TikTok, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. We do post all of our podcast episodes over there, and these accounts can be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you are at it, be sure to go and subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, anywhere that you can find a podcast. We are there. So give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a review, help us climb those charts, and be sure to come back next week. I haven't run this by Johnny, so I'm springing it on him now. If I can convince him to watch Locked Down, the new HBO Max original starring Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor, comes out midweek this coming week. So, it's an easy watch. It's on HBO Max. It's there at home if you want to watch it and follow along. Come back, join us next week for that, and we'll talk to you next time.